Sound art is a product that is a speaker and it's art. We combine it together and we call it sound art. What makes it so unique that any picture can be your speaker? Sound art gives you the high quality sound without the ugly speaker. This isn't a picture with a speaker, the picture is the speaker. Just imagine your wedding picture uploaded onto a canvas and now it's speaking 10,000 tunes. I mean, it's a very cool concept. What we like so much about it that you can take anything that means something very special to you, upload it on the canvas, have it hanging up in your room, your balcony, wherever you want to put it, and now it's a speaker. I mean, how cool is that? It's something that we have that and no one has. No one has this product. It's just a great gift to give anybody. It's just a neat concept. Around here we say, art never sounded so good.
Located in Kent, England, is a 12-time F1 Championship event host facility known as Brands Hatch Circuit. Spanning 3.7 kilometers up and down hills, around bends, and through the woods, we aren't going to grandmother's house, but we're lapping one of the faster and more finicky circuits on the VRS GT3 2020 Season 4 schedule, and therefore the Northwest GT3 Challenge schedule. Brands Hatch will challenge these drivers this evening, taking them on an exciting roller coaster of a lap and race, driving down Pilgrim's Rise, around Druids, the Cooper Straight, and turning Surtees into the English Woods. Hawthorne's Bend keeps drivers honest before also visiting Westfield and Sheen and dropping the anchor for Sterling's Bend. Clark Curve is the final challenge as the fast right-hand sweeper tests downforce and tires alike before rising back up the Brabham Straight to do it all over again. Welcome, race fans, to PitStop TV. As usual, we're live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter tonight. JP Costa and Trey Shuttlesworth with me in the booth. I am Andrew Cardinale IV, and this is PitStop TV's live coverage of the Northwest GT3 Challenge at Brands Hatch Circuit. We join you tonight from the virtual West Kingsdown, Kent, England, for the second edition of the season. And Barcelona, 1 week ago was certainly a race to excite. We had a lot more battles than I think even we expected up in the booth. We had turn 1, lap 1 mistakes. We had more incidents the rest of the lap. We had big pit stops that really changed the dynamic of the event. We had lappers getting in the way at the end and drivers giving way to one another as they came across the start-finish line. It was an exciting way to open things up for the Northwest GT3 Challenge. JP Costa, you were there with me for it. Trey, I welcome you into the booth for this event. It's going to be a good one visiting Brands Hatch this evening. This is a track that I think doesn't receive all of the credit it really deserves. This place is a magnificent racing circuit. I really like this track. Honestly, my first experiences with this place was actually on Real Racing 3 on like an iPad, a phone, whatever. And since then, I've fallen in love with this racetrack. It is just so picturesque. It's so challenging. It's so technical, but it's just good, flowing. It really is, I think, a great pleasure to drive, a pleasure to look at. It has everything you want in a racetrack.
Yeah, exactly. My first experience on this track was actually an F1 game, F1 2013. And just today I bought this track on iRacing and it made me regret not buying it earlier to run this week on VRS. It's just a fantastic circuit. It just flows so well with the GT cars. And obviously, as you said, it hosted Formula 1 events back in the past. So it's a classic. It's a classic British circuit. It's perfect pretty much, and it's gonna challenge every single driver in the grid. Obviously, we don't have, as you can see, runoff areas like we do have in Barcelona. You know, if you make a mistake, if you break out of the line, you're pretty much gonna break on the grass and you're gonna be ending up in the wall. So this is really gonna test every driver's skill tonight, and it's really gonna put a challenge to all the drivers that are here today.
Well, you guys also mentioned your first virtual experiences with Brands Hatch. I actually got my start with this track on Gran Turismo 5 in a remote Renault Megane Trophy Cup car, and I actually haven't raced the track since, but it is absolutely brilliant for this discipline of racing, and we're going to have a lot of fun tonight. And like you said, JP, it's just, in a lot of ways, the track reminds me of a lot of American circuits where there's a lot of natural elevation changes, not a lot of runoff. It's not like Silverstone, which was, built on an airbase and has a lot of modern safety features, including a lot of pavement runoff. This track's going to punish you if you go off the track, and it's going to be a lot of fun, especially considering we have, I believe, 35 cars on track tonight, which is down slightly from round 1, but we're still going to have a pretty massive field on a track that's going to get clogged up quite quickly.
Yeah, Barcelona definitely filled up last week with 40 cars turning up for that event. Right around that neighborhood, somewhere in there this week at Brands Hatch, the Northwest GT3 Challenge really is rather well put together, getting all of these drivers from different disciplines as well, actually. Different subsections within road racing, for sure. I mean, we've got, just for the drivers that we know, of course, we're going to learn more as time goes on, but I know the Whiplash Racing guys are from different backgrounds of road racing and really bring different things to the table. I know there's a bunch of different guys that maybe are more familiar with open wheel, maybe more familiar with GT cars, prototypes, what have you. So putting all of them together at a place like Brands Hatch, especially for round number 2, and following along actually with an official series schedule, is just really well put together. I like the way it goes, and being able to run practice races, not just practice on your own, but practice races all week long leading up to these races, I think is also going to prove to be a really, really cool addition to this series, because it's not just like we go to random racetracks with some other leagues, and I don't want to downplay that and anything like that, but being able to have your drivers practice all week long in race scenarios, practice scenarios, qualifying scenarios, and more really, I think, gives you a better product. We saw that at Barcelona 1 week ago. Again, battles throughout the race when we didn't really expect all those kinds of battles. It was exciting to watch Barcelona, and it gets a lot of bad rap quite simply because it is a high downforce track. It's one of those tracks that really forces, especially full-body cars like this, to the limit of their grip abilities, and therefore sometimes makes it kind of follow the leader. But you didn't have that 1 week ago, and I can't wait to see how we do this week here at Brands Hatch. Another very fast track that challenges you to put a lot of downforce on the car and still test the grip, especially around that final corner, Clark Curve, turn 9. But also just the rest of this circuit. It's very fast, very flowing. I like that you guys compared it to American circuits, because that's exactly what it does remind you of, is American circuits such as VIR, Road America, Road Atlanta. Great tracks in America, and that same kind of track building reflected here at Brands Hatch. Before we get too far into things, this is their qualifying session. They have 11 more minutes to go, so we'll quickly talk about point standings leaving Barcelona last week. And JP, it was all Garrett D'Alessandro, because he quite simply led everything. He led practice, he led qualifying, he started on the pole, of course, and led every single lap of the race, sans maybe 1 or 2 in there for the pit cycle. I mean, you just could not beat the number 13 car.
Yeah, exactly. He just controlled the pace, throughout the race. Absolutely no. Whenever the second place, John Winterdorf just had some pace to try and put some pressure, he just answered on the very next lap. So he's an absolute class of the field. Tonight in qualifying, looks like he's struggling a little bit. He's currently 1.1 seconds behind the provisional pole sitter, and the drivers here are facing the exact problem that they faced last week. Trying to get clear air in qualifying. With this short track, only 3.7 kilometers, only 9 corners, you're bound to get traffic throughout the laps. So it's really interesting to see whoever's going to get like a clean lap to put themselves further up the field, because overtaking opportunities here are going to be limited. You can't go diving down the inside on every single corner. Just on the middle part of the racetrack we have 2 blind corners, so it's going to be really essential for drivers to get the qualifying done right on this racetrack. And just coming back to the point where you said, this follows VRS, this helps a lot of the guys that maybe don't have the setup knowledge, to adapt the car to themselves, because obviously throughout the week we have all 3 major setup shops providing setups for these guys, so it helps level the playing field out, and you can have a whole week of practice, just understanding the car and maybe doing some setup work yourself. So it really helps out. You can see through qualifying, every single time is really close to one another, and it provides great racing for us to commentate over.
No, definitely correct there. Looking at the delta here, we're seeing a lot of guys within that, 107% threshold that you see in a lot of road racing in order to, compete in a field. No, just looking at the top 20, we have 20 cars that are within about 2 seconds of the leader. So it's going to be an incredibly tight field, especially at a place like Brands Hatch. It says a lot, because there are a lot of places where you can make mistakes, and then in turn, there's a lot of places where you can make up time. So just the fact that we're going to have a competitive field, I think it's just, very simply reflective of the fact that there's going to probably be a lot of overtaking action, even though pulling off an overtake at Brands Hatch is quite difficult, just because, like you said, JP, there's a lot of blind corners, and setting up for overtakes is difficult. Despite the fact that there's only 9 corners, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of long straightaways that give drivers an opportunity to slipstream up and get alongside before a braking zone.
Speaking of those straightaways and corners, we have a track map, of course, to go over this evening. As I mentioned at the start, it is 3.7 kilometers, and for those of you that are like me and go off of imperial measurements, that's about 2.3 miles. And I like how JP says only 3.7 kilometers, because if that was miles, it would be an absolutely massive circuit like Road America, but it's rather short, actually, just over 2.25 miles, just under 2 1/3, so it's actually a pretty tight track. And as you can see here, we had some trouble getting the text to not wrap over onto the track map itself, because everything just kind of folds up on one another. I mean, you have turn 2 Druids, which is only a little ways away from that straightaway from Surtees down to Hawthorne's Bend, so it really just wraps up one another. And actually the shorter Indy circuit goes from turn 4 Surtees straight over to Clark Curve turn 9 and wraps back around. And that's actually the first way I learned it on Real Racing 3 on my iPad, but then later learned the full course here at Brands Hatch. And again, this really is a magnificent circuit. It has everything you could want in a racetrack. You have the sweeping downhill for Paddock Hill Bend, down Pilgrim's Rise, which is kind of interesting. You go down the rise. But anyways, down around Druids, very slow. Graham Hill Bend, also very slow. But if you hit it just right, you can actually carry a lot of speed down the Cooper Straight before wrapping around Surtees, and then the longest straightaway we have here at Brands Hatch, down to Hawthorne's Bend. You actually gain a lot of speed, and then it's just trying to hang on as you nail each one of those right-handers back around to Sterling's Bend.
Yeah, definitely turn 6 and turn 7 are by far the most difficult corners to get right on this circuit, because you just arrive, you know, with such speed, and then you have to get the turn in right. Otherwise, you either cut the track or you're gonna go wide into the grass or gravel. And, you know, especially turn 7, you know, it's just uphill blind. If you don't get the turn-in point correctly, you're just gonna go off. So it really tests every single driver, and it really helps for them to have all the weeks worth of practice. But as you said, I mentioned how short this track is. You know, the Monaco Grand Prix in Formula 1, you know, it's pretty small. It's only 3.3 kilometers, so this is only 400 meters longer than Monaco. It's only 500 meters shorter than the Red Bull Ring at Austria. So it's a really small circuit, but it packs, you know, just like those two races, incredible action. You know, even though we may not see a lot of overtakes, we may see all those scenarios where the driver behind just keeps putting pressure lap after lap after lap, and it just becomes one of those memorable races that we just look back, you know, in a few days' time, maybe even tomorrow, and just realize how good of a race it was.
Yeah, definitely. If you're able to pressure a driver too, you are going to absolutely punish them if they go off the circuit. Most of the exit areas of the corner here have massive gravel tracks in it, and you're not going to necessarily get stuck in it like you would in real life, but it's going to take quite a bit of time before you're able to get your car out of that gravel trap. So being able to pressure someone off the circuit is going to be really rewarding if you're able to do that as a driver. Otherwise, I mean, if you can't make the overtake, you know, on natural ability, you know, outside of being able to pressure the guy ahead of you, we're going to have strategy coming into play tonight. 65% fuel load is going to guarantee at least one pit stop, so that gives drivers a little bit of flexibility as to when they want to pit, and they also have to determine if they're going to want to take an additional set of tires.
Yeah, we saw drivers split decisions on the tire situation at Barcelona. I wonder if this place might be a little bit easier on tires this evening. In fact, let's talk about the weather that these drivers have to contend with. Right around 66 degrees, which is actually a very mild day. It probably at some point will rain because we're in England, but regardless, the track temp only 68 degrees is very cool. In fact, 66.2 degrees is only 1.2 degrees above the lowest temperature that you can set for a session on iRacing, so it's very, very cool. And I wonder if these tires, it may be a no-brainer actually to just stay on the rubber that you start the race with, because much lower tire temps are actually going to keep these tires a bit better throughout the course of the run. Obviously, you'll still build plenty of temperature, but I think that will aid these drivers in going the full 60-minute race on just one set of tires. The fuel strategy definitely was also interesting, because some drivers short filled. Of course, you want to spend as little time in pit lane as possible, Trey, and to your point, the fuel strategy with the 65% capacity really changed things up, and that's definitely going to change how drivers enter and exit the pit lane, who they're in front of and behind, and therefore the dynamic of the event. Talking about the qualifying, as JP was kind of getting into, Chris Brunham currently our pole sitter. If he hangs on to this position, we were on board with him for a moment. We'll go back to him as he heads down to Clark Curve, it looks like, turn number 9. He's just kind of riding around right now. He's a 10th and a 3rd almost clear of Mikkel Ruderbusch, who is 2nd place, and actually not on the race. Oh, there he is. He is on the racetrack, my bad. He's still going to be shown in, let's see. No, it wasn't him. There's somebody that will still be shown in the wrong car. We'll fix that for next week, unfortunately. Just didn't quite have the time to do it before this race. James Hansen is 3rd place. Brady Lubnow actually into 4th. And Trevor Anderson currently rounds out our top 5, rather. And that's very interesting, actually, because Trevor came up in, I want to say, 9th position last week well, he just dropped into 7th. But last week at Barcelona, he was actually the center of a very interesting finish with some other drivers, some lap drivers, actually, that came into things and impacted the finish. And we'll let that one just kind of stay as is, but that was certainly interesting there, JP.
Yeah, exactly. It's so interesting to see, the shift between one racetrack as another. As Garrett, a race winner last week, you can see they're making a mistake, something we didn't see at all last week. And it's really interesting because Chris is pole right now in the Ferrari. Throughout the week, I was looking at some, the top split racing, all this sort of stuff. The Audi was by far the most dominant car on this racetrack, and followed by the BMW, the Ferrari, and the Mercedes. Look, we don't have any Mercedes here, but it's really interesting to see, Chris in a Ferrari nearly 2 tenths quicker than P2 in an Audi. So that just shows his pace, as he was probably the most unlucky driver last week. We saw him starting in P2 and instantly on the first lap already fall behind, and then just, just unlucky throughout the race. But it's really interesting to see, Mikkel on P2 last week, he started on P10, so that's a massive improvement for him. And Garrett, we talked about him, is already up into P4, only 4 tenths behind, so he's trying to make inroads, all this, and I'm sure he can improve more, especially he's in the Audi, and by the way he won last week, I hope to see him P1, fighting with Chris. And it's really interesting to see, how this circuit may suit some drivers better than others, unlike Barcelona.
Excellent point, JP. I mean, we've been talking about the circuit enough already for you to get the idea that we're at two entirely different beasts, and this one is definitely going to be a really tough track to tame for these drivers, but it's going to be a lot of fun to see these guys race tonight. Like you said, it's really surprising not to see any Mercedes out there, but otherwise there's a lot of diversity in terms of manufacturers in the field tonight. Currently, within the top 5, we have Ferrari, Audi, and BMW represented, and outside of that, we just don't have the Mercedes, and, putting us at, I believe, a total of 3 different manufacturers in the field tonight.
Yeah, no Mercedes are even registered for this series. We do have some McLarens that have not made it out this evening, it looks like, which is kind of unfortunate. It's kind of a home race for those McLarens if they were to show up, but looks like we have no McLarens in the field to fall right in line with Barcelona 1 week ago. It's all Ferraris, BMWs, and Audis, and the Audi won last week, but Chris Brennemer looking to change things up and take his Ferrari to P1. We'll see if he can do so this evening. The BMW is also a very popular choice, just no Mercedes. We do have one Ford that has registered for the series, but I don't see him out there this evening. Looks like he has not made the decision. Gavin Boyette looks like he has not made the decision to race here at Brands Hatch. Not really sure about anything else regarding that, but he actually had a great showing last week at Barcelona in that Ford. He finished, I believe, into the top 10, 10th position. So the Ford GT actually has some speed, which it's been kind of a meme of a car, if you will, being slow and then actually really fast and then kind of back down to where it's somewhat competitive with the other cars. It's had an interesting time here on iRacing as of late. Of course, we're talking about the old Ford GT, the one that was GT2 and GT3 spec, as opposed to the one that was GTE spec recently. But yeah, no Mercedes. Very interesting, because I always thought that was the best car in GT3. I guess only because it's the easiest, and well, I come from oval racing, so what do you know? But JP, as qualifying wraps up, we have under a minute and a half to go for these drivers. I believe we've actually gotten the checkered flag. They're just getting some more allotted time to finish their laps. Chris Brennemer looking to pick up right where he left off of being fast, but hopefully actually execute and get that finish that he deserves this time around.
Yeah, exactly. He led practice, he led qualifying. Now all he has to do is the race. Obviously, it's a 1-hour race around this track. He's definitely going to be encountering traffic throughout the race. It's a very short circuit, so traffic management is going to be a major factor in order to win this race. And obviously, he has to nail the strategy, because if you pit early and you get stuck behind someone and you can't pass, you're going to be losing valuable time. If you pit late and someone has pit early and managed to get clear air while you had to deal with traffic, you're going to lose the position. So it's definitely going to be really interesting to see when these drivers are going to pit. I don't think they're going to pit all together, just like last week. We're going to see people undercutting, and we're going to see people running until the tanks are dry, because this track is one of those tracks that you can really gain time by running the car light, up until the limit. So it's going to be really interesting to see the different strategies that these drivers are going to put in tonight.
Yeah, it might even be interesting to see guys go maybe light on the initial fuel load, just knowing that they want to make it to a certain number that lets them get to the finish of the race by letting them pit as early as, realistically, mathematically possible. But no, I unfortunately didn't get to see the race last week. I'm sure the broadcast was great. I'm sure the action was absolutely enthralling. Garrett D'Alessandro, as you said, led most of the race outside of during the pit cycle. But I think Brands Hatch is going to allow a lot of opportunities for drivers to make mistakes and a lot of opportunities to make overtakes, not only strategy-wise, but on the racetrack. These drivers are gooding up, and we're going to be rolling off of the start-finish straight, the Brabham straightaway, in about 2 minutes.
And so, of course, we will walk down our starting grid. We mentioned Chris Brunnemer being the fastest qualifier. He does wrap up the pole position this evening. Mikael Ruderbusch to his right side in second. Actually, I think it's left side. Yeah, because the first turn is to the right. Anyways, to his left side for the start of this one at Brands Hatch. Starting from third position in row number 2, it's James Hansen in the number 1. Garrett Alessandro, last week's winner, right there with him. Number 5, it's Sven Hartman in the number 93. Brady Lubenow with him. 7th place on the inside of row number 4, Trevor Anderson up into the top 10 in qualifying in the number 211. He had an interesting and exciting start to Barcelona 1 week ago. Tyler Campbell joins him in 8th position. 9th rolling off the grid will be Andre Millette with Gavin Cohn to his left side.
Starting off row 6, Eddie Lidoff, starting P11, and Michael De La Sala starting P12. In 13th place, we have Sada Rab, and 14th place, Michael Darling. 15th, we have Brendan Glenn Boyd, which I'm pretty sure he's going to want to emulate his his finish last week in 6th place. He's starting out P15. Just alongside him, Justin Michaela in P16, Eric Molinari in P17, and Claude Remillard in P18, and Jackson Lowry and John McClintock rounds up the top 20.
We look beyond the top 20. We see Randall Ayers and Mick Bloom making up row, this would be 11, my apologies. As we continue onward to row 12, we're going to see Torin Longacre and then Maurice Jones. Starting 25th and 26th, respectively, will be Gary Brown, Alan Roth, and then you go beyond that. We have Jeffrey Belk, James Allen making up row 14. Row 15 will be Grant Churcry and Ben Osterhoff.
Starting 31st, it's Josh Jaburek in the number 612. Justin Craig right there with him in row number 16. Then it's Jason Frisk in the number 89, rolling off from the 33rd position. Joey Atterbury with him there in row 17. Row 18, we get Julian Williams in 35th, Joseph Griffin in 36th. 37th starting spot is nobody, because we have 36 cars this evening. Of course, we have a lot of supporters that go into all of our PitStop TV broadcasts. We'll talk about our partners here soon, but before we start this off, we want to mention that Northwest GT3 Challenge broadcasts are brought to you by match donations to Laureus Sport for Good. Founded under the patronage of Nelson Mandela, Laureus Sport for Good uses sport as a powerful, cost-effective tool to help children and young people overcome violence, discrimination, and disadvantage in their lives. Over the past 2 decades, we have helped a global network of grantee partners and a worldwide charitable infrastructure. We've also helped develop a depth of understanding and corresponding credibility in our field and are recognized as a leading organization in the fast-growing sport for development community. Please help Northwest GT3 Challenge support such an incredible cause by placing a donation today. Go to www.laureus.com/sport-for-good/get-involved, and you can donate. We'll put that link actually in the chat over on YouTube, so you can follow up with that and donate if you so choose. I certainly recommend it. Again, a very good cause, and, well, the root cause as to why we actually get these broadcasts here on PitStop TV for the Northwest GT3 Challenge. We are rolling through Clark Curve for the final time before lighting these guys up, letting them roll free for 60 minutes at Brands Hatch. Waiting on the green flag, and they're already off. Chris Brunnemer leading into turn 1.
Yeah, Chris got a great start, caught everybody napping. As you can see, people are already going side by side through turn 1. Is everybody going to get in one piece like unfortunately last week they didn't, but looks like this week everybody got away in one piece, which is really good to see. As you can see, people are going 3 wide and making dive bombs into turn 2, as Chris still leads the race back back in the field, we actually have a lot of side-by-side battles, and Chris leads and obviously has a healthy lead over Mikel.
Oh,
James
we've got
still
a
in
spin right
P3,
here. RSR teammates
and
around.
now unfortunately the teammates broke the number one rule of racing, sorry, as you never should collide with your teammate, and unfortunately that's going to be bad news for the RSR team early on in the race.
We have completed about half a lap of action. Not as much chaos as we were expecting, probably. Only about 2 drivers go off, and coincidentally enough, they are teammates. But for now, it looks like it's going to be Chris Brunemmer who sets the pace here early at Brands Hatch. He claimed the pole in dominating fashion by over 2/10, and he's going to come to the completion of lap 1, most likely with a narrowing lead over James Hansen.
Chris Brunemmer already leading down to looks like turn 7, trying to keep up with this place. No, that's turn 9. That's around Clark Curve. That's already completing a lap here at Brands Hatch. It's so hard to keep up with sometimes around this place. Everything happens very, very quickly, as I mentioned earlier on. But Chris Brunemmer does lead a lap number 1. As you see at top of your, top left hand of your screen. Last week we had laps. This week we actually have a timer, so we can keep on tabs with that and actually know how much we have left in the race. The battle for second place, though, behind Brunemmer is James Hansen and Garrett D'Alessandro, who won last week at Barcelona, and that 13 car already looking rather spiffy, up a few spots there at the start.
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, Mikel didn't get a great start. Obviously, he dropped back to 4th. But you know, he's still in the chase. He's still very close to Garrett. And Garrett's trying to put the pressure on James. And we saw James last week had a bit of a quiet race, but he never yielded to the pressure. So hopefully we don't see him giving up to the pressure as well. As you can see there, Chris is absolutely checking out from the grid, already 1 second ahead. So Chris is pretty much emulating what we saw last week from Garrett, and I'm sure Garrett doesn't want to see that. You know, I'm sure Garrett just wants to be at the front and just leading off in the race. As you can see, he's already getting pressure from behind, and we're gonna see if, you know, hopefully he can keep the position, hopefully he can make the move stick, and that's gonna be the norm, you know, just putting the pressure on the driver ahead and trying to force them into a mistake so you can go through.
What we're starting to see when these drivers are having difficulty overtake is that there is an absolute traffic jam behind drivers who are beginning to slow up some of their slightly quicker competitors here at Brands Hatch. Looks like up front it is relatively tight there for the 3rd position. Last week's winner, Dale Alessandro, holding off pretty narrowly on Mikel Ritterbusch at the moment.
Oh, that was a big move from Mikel to try and take that position away. He looked to the inside into Druids, and it didn't quite work. You can't really put a car up the inside there. It's pretty tough to do so without hitting that car that you're trying to pass. You see that green patch that these guys can run onto on the exit of turn number 3. It's kind of just go there if you want, but you are at the limit of that grass. I don't think it gives you an off track even for going out there, but I could be entirely wrong. But it's really just part of the racing line at this point here at Brands Hatch. I think everybody does it for the most part. To bring you up to date on the happenings of that lap 1 incident, I'm not really sure which one of those RSR teammates it was, but they have since, it looks like, resumed. I think Andre Millette may have been one of them. He's now racing one of his teammates in Edwin Littolf, but we'll come back to those guys here in a little while because it's still pretty close up at the front of the field, and we don't want to get too far away from all of that. Looking at Tyler Campbell, who sits in 7th position behind Sven Hartman, and he's got Gavin Cohn behind him. The back end of the top 10 going to be Trevor Anderson and Brandon Glenn Boyd. But moving forward up from Tyler Campbell, past Sven Hartman, is going to be Brady Lubenow holding down 5th position in the T-Rex number 11. We found out last week that he is a geologist, I believe it was, and he's just into rocks and fossils, all kinds of cool things, and digging up things in your backyard. Right now, he's trying to dig up a 4th place position as he's all over Mikel Ritterbusch through Druids.
Yeah, you can see he almost got a great exit out of turn 2, but unfortunately couldn't make the move stick as Mikel runs a bit wide. That might allow the Ferrari to go up in the inside, and yes, he does. He's not going to waste any time, as you cannot waste time on this racetrack. Is Mikel going to try hold it around the outside? He does, but unfortunately the corner just squeezes him out, and you can see that Brady just gets the move done. Unfortunately, they lost quite a bit of time to Garrett, as Garrett can now afford to breathe a bit. As you can see there, the battle is not done. He tried to hang around the outside. It's pretty much impossible to make a move around the outside of this racing circuit, but I'm pretty sure we're going to be seeing some of those tonight. And no, as you said, turn 3, you have to use that part of the racetrack, the AstroTurf, in order to get a good lap. And you know, it's pretty grippy. It's just like asphalt. Unfortunately, if you do go a bit too wide, you're gonna get an off track. So I'm pretty sure those drivers are gonna be avoiding going that deep into turn 3.
Yeah, unlike what we'll see in official iRacing sessions sanctioned by the iRacing.com service, tonight these drivers don't have to worry about getting disqualified if they incur too many off tracks, or just collecting incident points as a result of both the off tracks and car contact. However, after 17 incident points, these drivers may have to serve a drive-through penalty or some other penalty automatically enforced by the iRacing race control. So it's something these drivers do have to keep in mind. There are a lot of places where you can go off the track quite easily here at Brands Hatch, and we have an hour of racing. And this GT sprint style racing is going to force you to be incredibly aggressive. So you're definitely going to be abusing the track limits over the course. Oh, that's one of the Whiplash cars.
That's
Looks
Michael
like
Della
he's
Sala
shunted.
here out of turn number 2, and there was some contact. We'll go back and get a look at things. So he was he was actually way off track there through turn 1. So we'll get a better look at things. Michael Della Sala dropping down the order. You see the ticker going crazy on the left side. Don't even worry about that. We'll come back to that in a moment. This is Michael Della Sala having a bit of a rough time through Paddock Hill Bend. Just gets a bit loose on entry, goes through the sand there on exit, gets back onto the racetrack, is letting people by. And I saw this. This is where I noticed that he was losing spots in the center of turn 2. It's a tough place to pass. And then on exit, just gets shunted. I mean, he's given no room on the corner exit.
Yeah, unfortunately got lost on entry on turn 1, as you saw that under braking, under load. And on the exit of turn 2, I guess, the spotter may have said the car was clear, or he just didn't see on the mirror, didn't expect the car, didn't expect Michael to be there. Sorry, and unfortunately you can see there, they just made contact on exit, the Audi. He's all the way around the outside. He's on the curb essentially, and the Audi unfortunately just comes over and throws him into the wall. So that's pretty heavy damage. Especially early on, 8 minutes into the race, 7 minutes actually into the race. And, that's not race ending by any means. He can still keep track position if he gets consistent lap times, but that's definitely not the way to start your race.
Unfortunately for Della Sala, that might have knocked the front toe out on his BMW Z4. And essentially what that's going to mean for him is that his steering box is going to be slightly off center. So that could be quite awkward if that's the case, especially when he's on straightaways and he's preparing to corner. Regardless, it's going to be a pretty long day from there. And we go forward and looking at the live action right now. We are riding along. Okay. Justin Maikala was the driver in the R8 who did make contact with him. And right now he's doing a relatively decent job right now. He started the evening in the 18th position, already up 4 spots so far tonight, and we still have 50 minutes of racing left.
We go back to this battle a little further back in the top 20, and it's Mick Blue and John McClintock who are going toe-to-toe and bringing Maurice Jones into this one as well. A 3-car battle for 15th through 17th, just ahead of Randall Ayers, Torin Longacre, and James Allen, the rest of the top 20 drivers. Up ahead, actually, so we saw that Justin Michaela had some company. Claude Remillard is up ahead of him. That is for 14th position that those two are racing for. Actually, now it becomes 13th position. And I keep hearing contact, like cars are hitting things. It may just be a little bit of cars rendering and de-rendering. I'm not really certain. But regardless, these guys racing back out here from 10th to 20th position. Eric Molinari is just ahead of Michael Doling. This is for 11th and 12th spot. And I'm not really sure that these guys have had an exciting evening this far, which is okay. It looks like there might be a little bit of damage to the back end of Molinari's machine, the number 46 gray and yellow BMW that you're looking at right now. Michael Doling, it doesn't look like really has any damage. Maybe a little bit on the left side of the nose, but nothing too bad. Brandon Gled Boyd in 10th position, just all on his own, along there with Trevor Anderson. These guys just kind of in their own little pocket behind everybody else in the top 10 that are battling. We have Tyler Campbell, Gavin Cohen, and one spinning. I see it.
Several cars off.
Oh, Lubenow and Ruderbush turned around in turn number 8, it looks like, Sterling's Bend.
Yeah, I was just going to wait for you to finish your part. Just going to mention how their battle was so close. And unfortunately, it looks like they made contact. Like you can see there, the Ferrari. Oh, the Audi just gets into the Ferrari. He just misses the braking point, and that's big damage to the rear part of that Ferrari. And, I was just going to mention, how Lubenow made that move stick after the mistake. of Mikel, and unfortunately he was holding him up, and unfortunately it looks like Mikel just got a little bit impatient on the braking, tried to make a move work, and unfortunately rear-ended the Ferrari. You can see there just a massive hit, so completely, you know, caught off by the braking marker, probably just because he was behind so close to the Ferrari. And I generally don't know what happened there, but that's big damage to both cars that were battling essentially for 4th position. You know, maybe they could challenge for P3 down the line. As you can see there, once again the replay just close to the Ferrari, just close. I'm pretty sure they just break at the normal braking point, and the Audi just gets caught up, and that's big damage. Luckily they didn't take anyone else in the process, but that Audi took the while to be able to rejoin the track. That's a very dangerous spot at the exit of turn 8.
Fortunately, we're here on the sim, and no one is in potential physical harm there, but Ruderbush is going to fall quite a bit down the leaderboard. He's currently sitting in the 17th position, and I'm sure he's going to have a bit of issues with his downforce and his handling. And is this him around yet again? Oh, this is Campbell, who was running near him at the time, and we're going to see him get off. Is this at Paddock Hill Bend, I believe? No, this is in the Force, actually. I believe this is coming out of Westfield Bend, where the driver of the 3 is going to go off.
Yeah, big trouble here for Tyler Campbell, as I was in the same line of thinking as you, Trey. I thought this was down Paddock Hill, but this is around, it looks like, turn 6, and I even got to remind myself of what that is called, but regardless, about turn 6 or so where he gets turned around here, and that is out of Westfield Bend. So you said that, didn't you? I'm in a million different places this evening. I tell you what. We were talking about bingo for Andrew Cardinale before and during and after broadcasts. This is one where I'm mixed up. I can't talk. I can't English this evening.
So as you guys saw, the Campbell, unfortunately he lost. You know, that's a tradition of the Audi, I guess. The lift-off overseat that you can get when you turn in the car and you don't have any load on the car, the rear just snaps, and unfortunately that's what happened to him. And we saw that once again. You know, we saw that first with the crash. We saw how dangerous it is to come back on the circuit, and you know, they just proved you cannot do a J-turn like you could in Barcelona. You know, you just have to rejoin the track at some point and, you know, just watch your relative. And unfortunately, due to how close every single car is to one another, you sometimes have to wait till the whole field goes past so you can rejoin. And unfortunately, he lost the 6th place. He's all the way down into 31st now, so you can see just how costly a single mistake can be around Brands Hatch.
Yeah, as we progress tonight, I think these rejoins are just going to get more and more terrifying. To complete a lap around here, it only takes about 1 minute and 20 seconds, and here we are only about, 15 minutes into the running at Brands Hatch, and the top 20 cars or so are already separated about 30 seconds, and the top 30 are separated by about a minute, so already there are cars consistently all around the field, as we do have a car off, and that is coming through Surtees into the English Force, and actually not live, but that was rather a replay. That was Lubenow, who qualified quite well here tonight, actually, qualified in the 6th position, and Lubenow, he does go into the paddock, and he's going to have to go and get a tow, and we'll see if he's able to come out and try to salvage some points here at Brands Hatch.
It does look like some drivers are calling it an evening already. Michael Della Sala stuck in the pit lane. He is going under significant repairs down in the pits. He's 34th. 35th with him is Jackson Lowry, so they're the 14 and 78. They are, again, 34th, 35th. Joseph Griffin, it looks like, is also done. I think he's one of our admins this evening. What am I talking about? So he is that 36th slot. Julian Williams, it looks like, may be done. He's 3 laps down in 33rd. Brady Lubenow is 32nd, undergoing those repairs, as a pass for 2nd place comes from Garrett D'Alessandro into Paddock Hill Bend. A scary place to do it, but he makes it work, as 2nd place James Hansen gives him that position pretty much. You kind of have to. As that car getting past at that point, you've got to just do what you can to facilitate that pass and make it go as cleanly as possible for both your sake.
Yeah, it's pretty impossible right now at this point in the race to hold that position. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. You know, we still have over 45 minutes left to race, so it doesn't really make sense. You're running both of our races, potentially actually running both of our races in order to keep a position. But, you know, we can see there Garrett is already checking out a bit, so he's going to be going after Chris, and this is a battle that we wanted to see at Barcelona. Unfortunately, we couldn't. This is the battle that we were hopefully going to see at Brands Hatch. The two fastest guys, I guess we can say, on the series, going one after another, and Garrett's going to be putting all the pressure that he can on Chris, and he doesn't need to be close. The fact that he's closing in on Chris is definitely going to be enough pressure, to Chris, just to look at their relative box, maybe get distracted, maybe try and push a bit more and potentially make a mistake. And that gap is going to be one to look out for in the next 10, 15, 20 minutes, and even after the pit stops, as we can see Garrett just trying to close in.
Great point, JP, especially with our pit stops looming here at Brands Hatch. These drivers, if they're given a 1 or 2 second gap, that's something that can very easily be made up even by having a very aggressive pit entry, because there's so much area just to be able to gain time before you get to the cone that indicates where you have to get onto your pit speed limiter and maintain a safe speed through the pit road. So not just that, but I think, Andrew, you were talking a little bit about how drivers last week actually weren't filling up their fuel loads necessarily all the way and only filling up as much as they need to get to the finish. And then we also have the fact that these drivers don't necessarily have to put tires on their GT3 race cars here when they come in for the pit stop.
Yeah, these tires, of course, are usually double stinted in endurance races, so these tires are good to go. They don't really have to pit. It's a matter of just whether or not you want to go back out there and have good, fresh rubber, but it is going to cost you some time in the pit lane, as I do believe tires and fueling is done separately. I could be wrong, actually. This may be one of the series, one of the classes, rather, where that is done simultaneously. One of you guys could probably correct me on that, possibly, but regardless, the fuel strategy is the big thing, because you don't have to take a whole lot. Of course, you can go 65% of pretty much an hour, because usually an hour is about how long one of these tanks of fuel lasts. So you can go probably 35 or so minutes, if not a little bit longer even, and really just take a much shorter pit stop and try and short fill. Only take what you need and spend less time in the pit lane, but it is tricky to do. And if you end up getting that one extra lap, because sometimes, my mind just stopped. But sometimes when you're coming down to the end of one of these timed races, iRacing will actually consider that the average length of a lap is too long for it to be completed. Whatever. It's weird how it works. And anyways, it might add an extra lap to the length of one of these races, and you can actually go just that little bit longer, and it can cost you when you are trying to play these fuel strategy games. So if you're coming out right to the end of the scheduled distance and iRacing ends up adding that extra lap, JP, that could really pay dividends for the cars behind you who are going to pass you as you run out of fuel. But you could also play with the engine map and try and save some fuel and stretch it out.
Yeah, exactly. I suffer from that on official races, just trying to stretch that one extra lap and having the car run out of fuel just as I'm looking at the pit lane. So definitely, some of these drivers, I'm definitely going to take the most aggressive fuel strategy possible, just trying to stretch out as best they can and trying to take out as minimum fuel, the least amount of fuel that they can, just finishing the car chugging against the line. And we're definitely going to see that, and definitely going to see it paid off for some drivers, definitely, because we already have, some drivers that are like 3 positions separated by over 2 seconds. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see who does what and who goes for a safer strategy. Obviously, Chris looks like he has a pace right now. If he can stretch that up, he can maybe go for a safer strategy and not having to push or save near the end of the race to make sure he goes until the line. And this is just going to be, we're just going to have to wait and see what each of these drivers are going to do throughout the race.
Yeah, that's a really good point, JP. We've seen it a lot on PitStop TV in these road races, these 1-hour sprint races, where sometimes guys will slightly miscalculate their fuel loads. We saw it in the Operation E Motorsports series a few weeks ago, I believe at Road America. It's actually been over a month, where a couple of the guys near the front were having issues with fuel, and I believe the car that was leading didn't make it to the end of the race. So these guys do definitely have to, be careful about their strategy. And if you're Chris Brunemmer, you're in a position where you are quite comfortable and you don't want to do anything that would be, well, quite frankly. Oh, and we have a car off.
So this is Sven Hartman that we've been following with, the 11.9 SimSport driver that has lost it out of turn 7, it looks like, heading down to turn 8, and we'll get a replay. We watched it live, but he was in the closest battle that we really had up at the top of the field. He was battling with Gavin Cohn just a little ways ahead, and yeah, just tracks out onto that grass, loses control, and that's so easy to do, JP. You are driving between those white lines, but you're trying to drive to the edge of them and right to the edge of that grass in order to use all the racetrack and try and run as fast as you can, keep your momentum up. And unfortunately, that's what happens if you go just a little bit too far out there. You clip that grass and wreck hard.
Yeah, that's the cost of pushing to the absolute limit. You're just on that thin edge between success and failure, pretty much. And unfortunately, it didn't go his way. He was running 5th. He was running a great race, and unfortunately, that might be race-ending crash. Just massive amount of things. He just hit the wall incredibly hard, and that's unfortunate. That's a battle that we were enjoying to watch for 5th place. A high up battle for major points in the championship, and unfortunately, he just clipped the grass. But that just shows that no one is safe from this track. Just a tiny wheel on the grass. These cars obviously don't have ABS, so your car is just going to keep the momentum onto the wall. And these top drivers, Chris, Garrett, James, Gavin, all of them have to be careful. Obviously they all have to push in order to close that gap, but they also have to be careful to not make those tiny mistakes that can end their race.
Oh no, absolutely, because these guys have so much to lose at this point. We have another car off that's coming through the exit of Paddock Bend. I believe that was a car that was about to fall a lap down.
It's the 612 of Josh Jabirek turned around in turn 1. We hear he had an incident as well on turn 8 on lap 2. So we'll see what happens to him. And he's backing up through all of that gravel. So he is in 27th position, so definitely a ways down the running order when all of this happens to him through Paddock Hill Bend. You can see him, he's just kind of in line with some drivers back here throughout the field, and possibly, well, kind of the opposite side of the racetrack, but about what happens to Michael De La Salle. Just a small mistake into turn 1 is going to have him backwards headed down the hill. He tries to turn it around and actually almost comes onto the racing surface. He's got to be careful because some drivers, just like that, I think that was our leader, Brunnemer. It may have been 3rd place Hansen. Regardless, that's exactly what could happen, is they could track out just a little bit wide and run that green strip of AstroTurf, almost like I think that was Gavin Cohn did right there. So you've got to be real careful when you do that and rejoin. Trey, you made the point that rejoins are going to get more and more scary this evening. That's a great example of one that could have gone poorly.
Yeah, exactly. Unlike the other BMW that lost it under load, he just went a bit too wide onto the entry and unfortunately clipped the gravel. But that's the second BMW we see losing on turn 1, the third BMW that we saw losing on the race so far. And, we saw one Audi losing it. That's the most twitchy car. That's the most dangerous car, I'd say, from the field right now. Obviously, that's not the McLaren. As you can see there, Garrett now having to deal with traffic, and you can see just how close the traffic gets, as James lost quite a bit of ground to Garrett. So the traffic may have played a factor, and as you can see, now this is going to start. Now the traffic game is going to start. Obviously some of these drivers are going to be battling for position, and they don't want to give up those 1-2 seconds to let the leaders pass in the middle sector, and this could allow us to see a battle for the lead earlier than we expected.
No, as the leader, Brunnemer, was coming on to the Brabham straightaway, he had to overtake 2 or 3 back markers that were running a bit slowly. There must have been a couple of cars that went off. I believe one of them was actually Tyler Campbell, and we were actually tracking with him for a little bit. But no, it's just very simply, you have to be on your toes here. So now we're going to go on board here with Rodebush, who is very quickly making his way back up the leaderboard. He was as low as 17th, and I believe this is going to be an overtaking opportunity. So we head into Hawthorne's, still along the inside, side by side, and we're going to go down the hill, still dead even.
Into Westfield now, a very tricky couple of corners to try and pass in, but through Hawthorne's and then Westfield it works out. But that's Doling trying to come back onto him in turn 7 and get back by him. He's going to make it work. Clears Ruderbush into 8, but Ruderbush is not over yet. He turns him. That's the second car in the same corner.
Yeah, that is disaster for Ruderbush. That's, as you said, the second car on the same corner on the racetrack. Another BMW. Oh, no, sorry, before it was a Ferrari. But you can see just how close that was between the two of them. Ruderbush just trying to go for a move that I'm pretty sure wasn't there to begin with. You can see he's lining up, but he's so far back right now. And, you know, the BMW just does what he does. You know, he just turned into the apex as he wasn't there up until the turn-in point. And unfortunately, the BMW loses out a lot of time right now, and he drops all the way back to P18, sorry, as it's just updated. So that's disaster. You know, fighting for P10, trying to hold your 9th place, and unfortunately you lose 9 places again. And I was just wanting to touch just before the crash. Tyler G. Campbell was just on board of him, and he lost it coming up to the main straight, and unfortunately hit the pit wall. So that's the first Audi that we see losing it under acceleration, and just proving again, you know, this track doesn't take any prisoners.
And you mentioned, JP, the fact that the Audi is incredibly twitchy, and it kind of makes sense that drivers would have some difficulty in some of the higher speed corners here at Brands Hatch. I mean, this circuit is completely comprised of high and mid speed corners, so the Audi, I'm sure, is going to be an absolute handful at a circuit like this. So we're going to continue to track here with Witterbush, and I'm sure the stewards are going to have a word with this driver after 2 incidents already, not even halfway through the event here today. And it's just, in both cases, it's been a little bit of driving just hasn't been entirely, I don't want to necessarily say overly aggressive, but, you know, overly aggressive is probably a good way to put it. And, you know, just way too aggressive, way too early.
The Valhalla SimSport driver just got in there a little bit deep both times. And really that time it wasn't even getting in deep. It was just trying to make a move in a way that I don't think was going to work out personally. I mean, he really, I think, and of course we're saying this as we're up at the broadcast booth and they're down on the racetrack holding the steering wheel, but I think he should have, you know, waded in behind him, let the fact that he crossed you back over, let that stand, and race him down through 9, 1, whatever, because I don't think you're going to make that pass in turn 8 ever. We already saw as he made contact with Lubenow in turn 8. I think that was more so just, I think, racing that first time because different braking points lead to that kind of thing, but I don't think that pass had to be made right there. Regardless, everything pretty spaced out through the top 10, aside from one little grouping of cars. Brandon Glenn Boyd currently in 6th place, and Eric Molinari in 7th, separated by less than a second, and they're getting closer and closer to having a battle for 6th spot.
Yeah, exactly, and it's a battle. It's going to be a battle of the German brands, but coming back to the incident. You know, he just made a move that it wasn't there in the first place. You know, he wasn't alongside. He didn't have the nose of the car aligned with the rear bumper of the BMW. And unfortunately, you know, just dive bombed on a corner that you shouldn't really dive bomb at all. And unfortunately made that contact. So I'm expecting to see a penalty coming up from next week. I don't think they're going to apply a penalty this week. But next week we're going to take a look at that and mention it. And as you said, Eric trying to close the gap into Brandon. And this is going to be, as you can see, that Brandon got a bit loose, and that's going to allow Eric to close even more. And just, you know, just a little thing, you can use a bit of the AstroTurf on the entry of the corner, but if you use a little too much, the car is going to get loose, and that allowed Eric to get really close and into the slipstream range.
It looked like Boyd is going to get enough of a recovery coming through. That would be Surtees as we head down the longest straightaway here at Brands Hatch into Hawthorne. That would be turn 5, heading into triple right-handers, all pretty high speed here, and it's going to be really hard to overtake at this point here for Molinari, but he's doing a pretty consistent job, and I think he's going to be within firing range here quite shortly as we head up to the blind right-hander, the last of these 3 right-handers, and then we're going into the left-hander now. It's Sterling Ben, and then we're going to be coming out of the English Forest and back on to the Brabham straightaway quite shortly, and I think he might have an overtaking chance.
Yeah, we're riding on board there with Molinari for quite a while. He gets right up to Brandon, and just, you can't really do anything through 9 if you're not really there. You've really got to be with somebody in order to try and take that inside line, and it's a sweeping corner. Oh, he gives him the flashers into 1. That's surprising. When a battle for position happens, that you're going to give somebody the flashers. I'm not sure what that's going to do for you, because that's for position, but, well, Brandon Glenn Boyd does take an off-line entry. It actually helps him on exit of Druids. He's going to get a big run down to turn 3 and try and hold on to this position down the Cooper Straight and such. I'm actually, again, I'm very, very surprised that that Molinari gave him the flashers right there. It's a battle for position. The guy is not going to heed whatever message you're trying to send with the flashers. I don't know why you would click that button. Just focus on racing the guy.
I'm pretty sure he was just trying to get into the head of the driver, you know, just making him look in the mirror just before the braking zone. And, you know, just trying to offset him into turn 1. We saw that it worked a little bit. He was a bit offline, and that allowed him to get a run into turn 2. As you can see, he's just so close to him. He's trying to make a move. Obviously, it's pretty much impossible to make a move onto this triple right-hander, and he's just so hard to follow. You just don't have a lot of the vectors that you do have when you're in clear air, and you just don't see the turning point, you don't see the braking zone, you don't see anything pretty much. You just see the bump of the car, so you're pretty much just going a little bit cautious to not make contact. And you can see he dropped back a bit, but coming up to turn 9, you can see they both take a different line, sort of. You can see the Audi just going all the way around, and Eric just trying to follow him, as now they have a little bit of distance, and Eric's gonna have to try to claw that all over again into lap 22.
We hear over race control, we do have a driver pitting in. I'm trying to find him on the leaderboard. I saw his name come up on our graphics, but I think in itself, that's an indication that pit window is open here at Brands Hatch. We're halfway home. Just to update on the battle that we are following, though, we are seeing that Boyd, his pace is slowing up Molinari quite a bit, and that's allowing Justin Makaya to also come in tow. So we might have a 3-car battle here quite shortly.
And remember, Michaela was one of those drivers involved in, well, I guess the driver involved in that Delasala incident out of turn number 2 out of Druids that I think has led to Delasala's retirement from this event. Although, no, actually, Delasala's back into things. He's 32nd position. But he's had his fair share of incidents. I shouldn't say fair share of incidents, but he's certainly been in the thick of things, I think is the better way to say it, for Justin Michaela. And in fact, he's got Mikkel Ruderbusch joining up in that battle. So now 2 different battles, nose to tail, actually. It could soon be a 4-car fight as we do close in on that pit window, Trey. I'm glad you bring it up because we have eclipsed the halfway point in this evening's event. And Sarah Rabb was the first of drivers to come in for a scheduled stop from the looks of things. She has made her stop, and she's back on the racetrack in about 21st, it looks like. That may change, obviously, as she passes some cars or what have you, but right around 20th, maybe a little further back. Regardless, this is great nose-to-tail racing between these couple of duos of cars. Brandon Glenn Boyd still trying to defend from Eric Molinari. That is for 6th spot, and of course Justin Michaela trying to hang on to 8th position over Mikkel Ruderbusch.
Yeah, Justin has a big task, because obviously he has Mikkel right on his back. He has to keep looking on his very, you can see they're just extremely close to one another, but he also has to focus to trying to catch the cars ahead of his. He makes a mistake, just as I was saying that. He unfortunately makes a mistake, gets on the power too early, and unfortunately goes into the grass, and then into the wall. So unfortunately that battle is lost for us, but now Mikkel is going to be on an attack to try and catch Eric. And just looking at the standings, Mikkel starting on 2nd is obviously he dropped back a bit, but you can see that battle. Brandon starting in P15, he's already up in 6th. Eric starting P17, he's already up in the 7th. And Justin was in P8 after starting on P16. So those drivers made massive inroads onto this first 30 minutes of the race. And unfortunately, obviously, Justin made a mistake, so that could cost him later on, due to damage. But it's incredible to see the inroads that these drivers made, especially on a track as difficult to overtake as this one. And just coming back to Sarah last week, she was the first one to pit as well, trying a different strategy. So tonight she pulled off the same. Let's see if it works out for her just as it did last week. And hopefully it does. We want to see those different strategies work. We don't want to see one strategy ruling everybody else. So hopefully she can make some inroads with that undercut.
As a spectator here tonight, I think it's going to be very fun to see Mikkel Ruderbusch continue to make his way up the leaderboard. Of course, as the driver, you don't want to be the one having to make a lot of aggressive moves through the field after an incident. But as a spectator, it's going to be a whole lot of fun. And I'm sure it's going to remind me a lot of the heroic drives we've been seeing in Formula 2 this year from drivers like Guan Yu Zhao. That's the reason I say that, is because it's a similar color scheme on his Audi. But no, regardless, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch him. He showed in qualifying that he had pretty strong pace, and I definitely think he can make a run at the top 5 here.
Michaela comes down, or no, has come down. Yes, after his mistake, he's coming out the pit lane. Andre Millette exits the pit lane. That's going to be Torin Longanker entering the pit lane, entering his pit box, coming in for service. I was looking at a battle a little further back. Joey Atterbury was at the center of this, and he's got Michael Doling behind, James Allen up ahead, and Doling looking to try and get back up there after his incident with Mikel Rudebusch, who we were just talking about. These guys all, it looks like, have a little bit of damage. Atterbury to his left side, Doling, I think, to his rear, and possibly right. No, it'd be left from that contact into 8, where they go through now. And they are following James Allen on the number 117. So these guys battling around 12th, 13th, 14th or so, it says in the ticker anyways. But that could change because, of course, when we go back through the field, it de-renders some cars at the lead and really changes things up.
Yeah, that's a master strategy. This is going to be interesting to see who pits first, you know, who's going to be the first to pit. Obviously, the two drivers behind don't want to be being held up by James, you know, Michael, Dooley, and Joey. They don't want to be held up, but they don't want to be the first to pit and trying to get into, and unfortunately, getting into traffic. But you can see that they're all so close, you know, unfortunately, when you get close and you start putting pressure, the guy ahead of you has to start worrying about his mirrors, so he ends up driving a bit slower, so it ends up slowing you down, making you vulnerable to the car behind you. So this is just the domino effect that's going to be happening throughout the field. And now it's going to be interesting to see if Joey can get past James quickly in order to pull that gap from Michael.
Yep, the gaps might be quite wide in some places, but we're definitely at a really exciting point of the race, just because so much is going to change in this pit cycle. And looking at timing and scoring right now, it looks like about the top 13 or 14 cars on the racing circuit, at least, you know, in terms of position, have not made the venture down to pit road. And the highest car on the leaderboard that has is Justin Makaya. So him being one of the very early takers onto the pit road, I think it'll be fun to see how he makes his way up the leaderboard.
Meanwhile, Chris Brunnemer continues to lead, and that's what I was saying. These guys can go probably 35, 40 minutes on fuel, and they are doing so currently as Chris Brunnemer still has not made his pit stop. Looks like Mikel Rudebusch has come into the pit lane. He's come in for service. He brings Brandon Glenn Boyd, Claude Remillard, and more with him. Gavin Cohen has made his pit stop as well, it seems, and he gets back onto the racing surface. Claude Remillard still in the pit lane. Those other drivers I mentioned, it looks like, have exited. Some of these other guys looks like still out there. John McClintock, I don't think is pitted yet. Michael Doling either. And Doling still in that battle with Atterbury and Allen. Jeffrey Belk is not pitted yet. He's about 4.5 seconds clear of this battle, and 1 second behind Gavin Cohen, who is now all over Mick Blue. We might have a battle into those three right-handers. Again, Gavin Cohen is pitted, Mick Blue is not.
Yeah, you can see just how close Gavin is. He's trying to put as much pressure as he can. Looks like he has great track awareness. He's not falling back, you know, he's just filling those mirrors with those BMW grills, and he's just putting those pressures, coming back quickly to Michael Rudebusch. We saw how ineffective your pit stop can be if you're just 1 second too late. He came back behind 4 cars, and 2 of them are fighting for positions, and 1 of them is for actual track position. So unfortunately, those drivers are not gonna let him go soon. So unfortunately, that's time lost. As we can see there, Gavin is trying to line up a move coming into the main straight. You can see he goes a bit deep. As you can see there, Eric, I'm pretty sure that was Eric. No, Mick Blue, sorry, came into the pit. So unfortunately, that loses us a battle. But Gavin gets released into clear air. Hopefully, put some lap times in to try and close up to the cars ahead.
In all of that, I'm going to cut in front of you real quick, Trey. Chris Brunnemer has made his pit stop and has returned to the racing surface in 4th position.
No, perfectly fine. You know, it's very important that we know what the leader's doing here because, I mean, 1 second. Just the fact that right now we're only seeing one guy that's being able to really match his pace here in the first stint here, and it is Garrett de Alessandro, the guy who won last week at Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. And right now, he's going to stay out 1 or 2 additional laps, and it'll be interesting to see if the overcut works in favor for De Alessandro or if it's going to go in favor of the undercut. So right now, this is probably the most pivotal point of the race. If you are De Alessandro, you need to be hitting the maximum lap times you can right now, even if your tires are starting to fade.
And I'm just going to cut ahead of you, Andrew. Garrett is on the pits as well as Jamie Hansen, so this is going to be extremely close. Garrett is exiting the pits. Is he going to come out ahead of Chris? And he is. So Chris lost the lead of the race on pit lane. We talked about it before the race. We talked about it during the race, and now unfortunately Chris managed to get the overcut to work. So we're not sure if he put less fuel in or if Chris overfueled, but this is going to be exciting till the end right now.
And the telemetry that we have, and it may be slightly incorrect because of cars rendering, de-rendering, and such, but it looks like the pit stop may have been longer for Garrett D'Alessandro than Chris Brunnemer. I wonder if it just comes down to execution in the pit lane then for Brunnemer losing that spot. Regardless, Alessandro does take the race lead. We have other drivers like James Hansen that have pitted, Eric Molinari has pitted, John McClintock has not, Mikhail Rudebush, Brendan Glenn Boyd, Trevor Anderson, Michael Doling, and the rest have all come down the pit lane. It looks like everybody coming in just about at the same time. Some of those drivers still on the pit lane. But for the most part, I think the whole top 5 has pitted and re-entered the racing surface.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Chris now is going to have to absolutely put the pressure on Garrett, you know, the guy that we saw who didn't concede anything, you know, didn't make a single mistake last week. He's going to try to force him into a mistake this week as they're approaching lap traffic once again. Unfortunately, luckily the lap traffic goes into the pit, so, you know, that just released the 2 leaders into a great battle. I'm pretty sure they're under 1 second from one another, so definitely Chris is going to be wanting that Ferrari to absolutely pressure that Audi. And this is just going to be exciting for the end. You can see that Chris just takes a little bit of battle line into turn 1. Is he going to be braver on the brakes? You can see how close he gets to the brakes, so really confident under braking. Maybe Garrett is having to save a little bit of fuel right now, you know, in order to get a dash to the end. We're not sure, but it's going to be, you can see just how close they are from one another. So this is just going to be incredible up until the end.
Incredible visuals of this battle that just continues to tighten as we head down the longest straightaway here. We're going to go into Hawthorne's Bend, triple right-handers right now. But no, you said it, Andrew, definitely the fact that there's probably issues for Brunnemer on pit road. His pit stop was only about 7/10 slower than D'Alessandro's, but his time in the pit lane was about 3 seconds slower, so he wasn't quite as aggressive on the pit entry and pit exit, and that's going to cost him quite a bit of time. That puts him in the predicament that he's in right now, but, you know, we're going to get to see what's going to be an absolutely enthralling fight to the end here. We still have 20 minutes. It's probably going to be about 15 laps around Brands Hatch here.
Brunnemer is definitely a little bit better right there through turn 8, and he is all over Garrett Alessandro for Clark's curve. And oh, maybe a little bit of contact there as they settle up for turn 9. Alessandro wide out of the corner and up the Brabham straight. They go side by side. It's a drag race with 19 minutes to go. These guys racing like it's for the win.
They're racing for the win, and absolutely, as you can see there, Garrett doesn't want to give it up. He's trying to hold around the outside. You can see he didn't shut the door in the main straight. Unfortunately, is he going to hold around the outside of turn 2? He doesn't. He's going to try to get a cutback line into turn 3. Does he get a better exit? He does. He's going to be lining up on the outside. No, unfortunately, he does. Trying to put the nose in. Unfortunately, he can't. He goes wide into the AstroTurf and unfortunately falls back into P2. So it's going to be exciting if he can get a good exit into the longest straight that we have on the racetrack. We can see there the Ferrari just so settled, so perfect on the racetrack, and Chris definitely made that move stick. Just as we talked about how Garrett doesn't make any mistakes on the race, he just made 2 mistakes on 2 corners, and unfortunately that cost him the lead.
If you want a lesson in racecraft, that was it right there. You were going through some of the most intense corners here at Brands Hatch, and those guys did it side by side, going through Paddock Hill Bend and down that hill. That was incredibly impressive. Drivers without as much skill as these guys have definitely would have gone off, made contact, but those guys gave each other a lot of room in an area of the track where really there isn't a lot of racing room. You really, outside of the first couple of laps at Brands Hatch, you do not expect cars to go side by side through that corner, yet those guys did it. Very impressive. And at this point, I think we expect Brunnemer to pull away at this point. But, you know, from what we've seen today, anything can happen. He's a dominant car, and now the pressure is definitely on him because he has so much to lose.
And D'Alessandro can definitely fight back. I mean, Garrett's just quick, and he's got speed to try and fight with Brunnemer, but I think one of the big observations I've made in watching these guys fight for the last couple of laps now is it seems that Brunnemer can point his car into the corner a whole lot better. It seems to nose in really well, whereas the Audi of Garrett D'Alessandro just doesn't quite want to turn in those high-speed situations. Seems good in low-speed corners, but at high speed, especially this section of the racetrack through turns 6, 7, 8, 9, it doesn't seem like it wants to turn in quite as much. Watch for it here in these fast, high-speed corners. It seems like Brunnemer can definitely point in as he goes on the defensive into Hawthorne's Bend, and actually D'Alessandro takes the lower exit out of the corner, and these guys still bobbing and weaving, trying to figure out if Brunnemer wants to defend or not, and if D'Alessandro wants to try and stick it up the inside. I would not be surprised if he tries a turn 8 pass.
Yeah, exactly. We saw that the Ferrari just went a bit wide into Surtees, and obviously that cost him all throughout the main straight. But, you know, Garrett obviously is on a really difficult situation because being so close to the guy ahead, obviously you want to be as close as possible in order to capitalize on any mistakes. But being so close, obviously you don't have all of those vectors that you do have for braking and turning points. So obviously that ends up costing him. You know, sometimes he goes 1 meter too wide on the apex, and that ends up costing him half a second, you know, 3-4 tenths. So definitely, you know, it's a difficult situation. He wants to be as close as possible. You can see just how aggressive he is, how he's using every single little inch of the track on turn 1, and, you know, just getting close, just trying to force Chris into a mistake. Chris is having to use absolutely every single inch as well of the track in order to trying to stay ahead, you know, trying to stay out of that dive bomb situation pretty much. And, you know, they're gonna do all over again, you know, going against into Surtees. You can see Chris just gets a little bit on the curb. You can see just Garrett got the ideal line, and you can see he already got a run, and I'm not sure he's gonna be close enough into turn 5.
Not quite enough there for Garrett Del Alessandro, but he has made his presence known yet again after conceding the lead a couple of laps ago. And you're right, these guys are absolutely on the limit. I've seen Chris Brunever a couple of times flirting with the gravel trap coming down the hill at Paddock Hill Bend, and these guys are going to be nose to tail here as we head down into the left-hander. That is Sterling's Bend here. As we head back onto the front straightaway, we're going to come through this final right-hander. And then, unfortunately there for Del Alessandro, his run has fallen off for a little bit, but I'm sure he's going to be right back in the running within a couple of laps.
So the battle continues now into the final 15 minutes at Brands Hatch. We've kind of neglected the back end of the top 10, or I guess the rest of the top 5. James Hansen runs third still. He's having a very quiet night in the number 1 car. Gavin Cohn runs fourth after getting on by Molinari, it seems, and yeah, Molinari then runs fifth, who has a mirror full of Mikael Ruderbusch. We've seen this episode before, following a BMW into turn 8. Thankfully, it all works out well for these two, battling for 5th and 6th. Brendan Glenn Boyd in the Audi in 7th. Justin Michaela in 8th. Claude Remillard in 9th. And Trevor Anderson hanging on to a top 10. They're actually battling right now through Sterling's Bend, and they're going to head down to Clark Curve for turn 9.
Yeah, you can see just the two BMWs getting really close. You can see just on the main street, you can see just how much more confident Trevor is on their braking than Claude. Is he gonna try and make a move down into turn 1? If he wants, he's gonna commit early. You can see just pointing the BMW, those BMW grills. Unfortunately, he's not close enough. You can see he just goes a bit over to the left-hand side, trying to get a better exit. As he does, is he gonna be trying to move down the inside of turn 2? He's a bit too far away, but he's gonna make his presence known. As you can see there, Claude goes a bit wide into the entry, but manages to put the car back into position during the mid-phase of turn 2. And you can see just he gets a bit on the grass, and that's going to activate the traction control and affects his exit. You can see there Trevor is actually impatient, looks like, behind that BMW, just trying to point the car at every single possible situation. And as he does get a good exit into the longest straight that we have here, and is he going to try to make a move into turn 5? He's definitely going to poke his nose out. I'm sure he will. And unfortunately, he doesn't, so I was wrong. But you can see just how close he gets. Oh, that was incredibly close. That was almost contact into turn 5. That would not end well for both of these drivers.
I think Anderson was expecting him to break a little bit later than he actually did. He seemed like he broke quite early, and he wasn't prepared for it. He did lose a little bit of momentum, but it's not going to slow him down too much. He's still only a couple of tenths off right now, and this is the battle for the 9th position on track right now. So definitely a lot of points that could be at play here, because it is quite tight as we get into the midfield around this section of the circuit.
Into the final 12 and a half now. Time just ticking down, and these guys all drawing closer and closer. Time runs out, and suddenly you end up battling for positions, it seems. Trevor Anderson all over Claude Remillard, trying to take the 9th position. And is that? No, that is a lapped car behind them, it looks like. That is not for position. Up ahead, there was that battle with Mikael Ruderbusch and Eric Molinari. That has not gone anywhere. They still fight for 5th and 6th.
Yeah, you can see there Mikael trying to put the nose out into turn 5. He's going a little bit cautious after those two contacts with the Ferrari and the BMW. So he's going a little bit cautious. He definitely has the pace over Eric right now. So it's just a question of lining up that move and doing it cleanly. Obviously, he done that several times. Unfortunately, we saw those two contacts, and unfortunately, it ended badly for him. But, you know, he's a very clean driver, I'm sure. Unfortunately, those two mistakes end up costing him a lot. And you can see there, this is how close and just how difficult it is to get close in order to line up a move into turn 1. You really have to be right on the bumper, you know, right on the edge of making contact in order to line up a move. But you can see there, he's just taking a lot of curb, taking a bit of grass, and going all the way around to the left-hand side of the racetrack. As he got a good run, is he going to try anything down into turn 1? He's going to poke his nose out. He is, but unfortunately he doesn't dive. You can see there, he just trying lines up a better line into turn 2. He does get a better exit on the initial part, on the initial phase, but unfortunately not close enough to turn 2. So he's probably going to have to wait all the way into turn 5 after going onto Hawthorne's Bend to try and make a move again.
The important thing that Ruderbusch is doing is he's making Molinari have to take defensive lines onto the entry of corners, and that really compromises his exit speed coming out of the corner. Not just that, but it's going to really compromise his minimum corner speed when he gets to the apex of a corner. And this is exactly the scenario where Ruderbusch is going to get rewarded if he's able to come alongside of Molinari here coming into turn 5. Not quite, but regardless, no, he's doing his job right now by forcing the car ahead to take lines that are a little bit unconventional.
And this all as we check in on the race leaders, and oh, they're in some heavy traffic. This is a great time to turn to these guys because they're getting by John McClintock and more. McClintock again with a damaged Audi wing, and suddenly Garrett Alessandro has a chance at the race lead once more. They might go sideways, or side by side rather, through Surtees. Alessandro sets him up for the exit, and side by side, oh, I can't talk. Side by side down the straightaway, they almost went, but that Audi stepped out. He had to fall back in behind Brunnemer. He dodged to the left side like he was going to try and make a move on Brunnemer, but time is running out for Garrett, and he knows he needs to get on by. They're coming up on Sarah Rab, lap traffic.
Yeah, you can see just 10 minutes to go, and it's closer than ever. Obviously, Garrett knows that he has to make a move soon. You can see just how close they are from one another as they nearly make contact. And Garrett manages not only to save the car, but avoid going into the grass to not lose time. And you can see he lost a bit amount of time, as they now going to have to deal with lap traffic. Looks like Sarah is not going to get out of the way before the start-finish straight, so that's going to give another opportunity of Garrett to try and line up a move into turn 1 or turn 2. As you can see, he's close. He's not close enough to try and put the nose in. As I saw before, he's going really clean into him. He's going a little bit cautious, so he's trying to study what Chris is doing on every single line and trying to line up a move to definitely take the position and not allow Chris to try and get a cutback line on him.
Interestingly, we're going to see the lap traffic get out of the way there. Rab does get out of the way. That's not what we saw when we cut back. There were a couple of cars in the way, and right now it looks like these guys are going to be a consistent 2 or 3 tenths apart. And now it is up for De La Alessandro to force a mistake yet again out of Brunnemer. We're going to head down the back straightaway yet again. Still about 2 or 3 tenths. And it looks like Brunnemer is going to get off well enough right now that an overtake shouldn't be in the question as we head into turn 5.
Brunnemer still leads now into, I got to think, that was Hawthorne's Bend, rather. They head down to Westfield, turn 7, and they just cannot leave one another alone. I want to quickly touch back up on that battle behind because it looks like things have possibly changed throughout the rest of the field. No, actually, Mikel Ruderbusch still all over Eric Molinari. This is still for 5th and 6th. It's not changed much. Just want to quickly tab back into that battle, but as we watch them go through Surtees now, the battle for the lead is just too good. We can't leave that for long because Garrett Alessandro is trying everything he can to get by Chris Brunnemer, and he's tried a couple of different moves at this point, but it just hasn't stuck quite yet. Eventually, I think if you throw enough things up at the wall, something's going to stick, but it's going to be tough to get by that 2 car.
Yeah, in that position, that battle didn't change, but I'm looking at Claude lost 2 positions, and he's putting a very slow lap time, 6 seconds off his pace. So I'm just looking behind it to see if he made a mistake. Oh, he did on the exit of turn 2. He just got a little bit on the grass on exit and unfortunately touched the wall, and that cost him 2 positions. So he's down into P11 outside the top 10. So that's unfortunate for him as we cut back into, I'm pretty sure it's the lead battle. You can see just, you know, he gets close, but unfortunately he doesn't get close enough on the right part of the racetrack to try to make a move. So it's just this all over and over again. And this is what I talked about in the pre-race show, I guess you could say, on the qualifying. This is just like Monaco. This produces exciting races even though we don't see moves all the time. You know, just the fact that Garrett's putting pressure lap after lap on Chris, trying to force him into a mistake and leaving us on the edge of our seats to try to see the lead change. This produces enough excitement to make me want to watch this race later on.
No contact that time through turn 7. We're going to come this time to Clark curve, and we're going to head down the Brabham straightaway. We're probably only going to have 3 or 4 laps left here at Brands Hatch. Right now, there is very little give nor take between the top 2 right now. Outside of the top 2, the closest battles that we have on the racetrack are between Eric Molinati and Mikhail Rutterbusch. That's the same as it's been. Oh, we're side by side for the lead, handing the pack wheel Ben. Very late on the brakes for Dale Alessandro. He's going to have a run as we head up into Druids. They're going to be side by side. Enough room is given by Runever.
Oh, he misses it! Contact!
Oh. It's going to be the lead, though, for Dale Alessandro. Absolutely brilliant overtake. Probably not the way he wanted to go. He got sideways. Traction control was definitely on. Able to hang on to it. And we have a lead change here yet again at Brands Hatch.
That was incredible from D'Alessandro. He just shipped it up the inside, licked the stamp, and sent it. And real sideways to apex, right where Brunnemer gave him a shot, right around Druids. It's kind of a double apex, I suppose, but ends up working for now. I'm not so sure he was happy with that move, though, because Brunnemer gave him the flashers down out of 2, down to 3, and it's one way to take the lead for sure, but you got to keep the guy you're racing pretty happy as well. I'm going to touch back up on the Molinati and Rutterbusch situation as they've actually drifted apart from one another for the moment as Eric Molinati puts a little bit of time back to the 22 of Mikhail Rutterbusch. It looks like they're going to separate for 5th and 6th. Everything else pretty well sorted through the top 10, so it's really just a matter of these 2 leaders. Brunnemer definitely faster, but after giving that shot in the shorts to Garrett D'Alessandro, I wonder if maybe there's a little bit of damage to the nose end of the number 2. I don't really see any. I think it was low speed enough to where it didn't hurt anything, but man, that could have been unfortunate.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it, and Chris doesn't seem to have the same commitment through the corners as Garrett does. So I'm not really sure what's happening. Through turn 1, he was extremely slow. So I'm not sure if his, just confidence is just trying to get up to speed again. But that last lap obviously didn't count due to the contact, I guess. But just doesn't seem to have the pace as he did last time around when he was in the lead. And Garrett just lined him up on the turn 1, made him get the inside line. Get the compromise line and just send it into turn 1. Unfortunately, the rear just stepped out and he couldn't get the power down, and that may have contact with Chris, may have caused some contact, but it was extremely in my side. You can see there Chris just making a mistake right now. So we didn't see him make a single mistake throughout the race apart from maybe the pit stops, but right now he's just absolutely fallen behind Garrett. So I'm interested to see what happened to him.
It looks like Runever is still struggling a car with which its tires are probably starting to really fade away here. We are on the back end of an hour of abuse onto these tires, and unfortunately I think they are starting to give out. He was having to do a lot of aggressive driving to defend on D'Alessandro, but like you said, it almost seemed like he wasn't braking very heavily as we went into Druids, and then the recovery was a little bit uncharacteristic. So it just might be the tires that are starting to go away for Brunemmer. He just needs to continue to set a couple of consistent lap times. We've seen the lap traffic that can be very all over the place in terms of how much room they want to give the leaders as they're being overtaken. So D'Alessandro still has to produce a couple of clean laps here at Brands Hatch. Not out of the woods quite yet.
So a fight for the win that takes us into the final 5 minutes here at Brands Hatch. What more could you ask for? I suppose you could ask for Chris Brunnemer to have the speed to get back up there, but man, that car just does not seem quite as fast as it used to be as he passes the slow. I'm going to catch up on who that is. It's one of the Valhalla cars, and that is Alan Roth, actually. That's going to make a lot of fans out in the chat happy. That's Alan Roth riding around in 29th position, the number 12, having a very quiet evening. He's got some damage to the nose end of that car, but he is trying to fight through it. Again, 29th, so he's at least on the north end of the top 30, but definitely, I think he's leaving room for improvement, and I think he will find that improvement here as the weeks go on. But 29th, he's down a few positions from where he started. Obviously, must have been caught up in some kind of incident at some point that has hindered his progress. Regardless, he is still racing, and that's the biggest thing that you can do as a driver here in one of these longer races. 60 minutes kind of in between a sprint and an endurance run, because for one driver, that's getting up there, but the first thing you have to do is at least make it all 60 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, it did. I mean, he looks like he got into contact. He's 10 laps down. But the man who isn't 10 laps down is Mikko Rutterbusch. He's already back up on the tail of Eric Molinati, and they're once again fighting for position. Less than half a second separates them, so it's going to be definitely the battle to look on this tail end of the race, this final minute and 40, so these maybe final 2 laps of the race, as Eric Mikel, sorry, is gonna try to get back into the 5th spot that Eric is currently holding, sorry, after starting P17.
It'll be interesting to keep tabs, as we're probably going to take the white flag either this time as Garrett D'Alessandro comes to the start-finish line, or the next time by. So the clock rather continues to wind down, and we'll have to keep tabs there on that battle there for the final position in the top 5. Right now, Chris Grunever does have to overtake the first car lap down. Oh, that was very close between him and Mick Blue, but it is going to be just him and D'Alessandro, although I do believe as we come to the Brabham straightaway that there is a bit of lap traffic that will be ahead. Michael Dalling is going to be the first car that D'Alessandro is going to have to tackle, a couple seconds ahead of him.
We have the final lap text on the top of the ticker, so it looks like we are possibly onto the white flag here for Garrett D'Alessandro, and he's going to run through Druids. But you saw that battle momentarily with Eric Molinari and Mikael Ruderbusch. These guys still going at it for 5th and 6th position, and you see Brunner take the lead for a moment. I don't think that's reflective of what's actually happening on the racetrack, because they are de-rendered right now. But Molinari and Ruderbusch still nose to tail, fighting for 5th and 6th. We'll catch back up on our top 2 as Garrett D'Alessandro does still lead. We come into the final 15 seconds, and we'll either get the white lights at the top of the screen, or it will keep going. We'll see which one it does in about 5 seconds time. But what a race for Garrett D'Alessandro to come from behind in this battle with Chris Brunner and make that pass. It was an interesting way to do it. It does look like this will be our final lap of racing, as Brunner continues to try and fight back up there, but I think it's just too little too late, especially already through Westfield, it looks like. This is headed down to turn 8. This is it. I mean, this is it for these two. And somehow Garrett D'Alessandro has found a way to put himself back into position to win now 2 weeks in a row, because out of turn number 9, Clark Curve, Garrett D'Alessandro is going to be your winner at Brands Hatch Circuit in the Northwest GT3 Challenge. He has done it over Chris Brunner. What an epic battle those two had. Further back, James Hansen will, it looks like, finish 3rd place, but this is the best battle on the racetrack left. It's 4th place, Eric Molinari, and 5th place, Mikael Ruderbusch.
Yeah, that was an incredible race. Obviously, it still isn't over for 5th place, as Mikael, is he going to try to make a move down into turn 8, or is he going to wait until turn 9 to line him up? You can see there, he's trying to get close. Oh, unfortunately, Eric looks like he got a bit away from the apex, but it looks like he got a better exit than Ruderbusch, so he looks like he should be settled for P5. Obviously, the race isn't over until it's over. It looks like Mikael got a really good line into the final corner. He's going to be putting the nose. Eric goes to block, and they're going to finish side by side, but Eric, starting P17, finishes up in P5. A great recovery drive from a poor qualifying attempt, but manages to finish P5. Mikael, obviously, after starting on the front row, unfortunately finished P6 after those 2 major contacts put him backwards towards the grid.
Are you not entertained by that one? Absolutely enthralling show. Doesn't matter where you were in the field, a lot of absolutely exciting action. Going to see a couple of the Beamers come across the line. Just about wrapping up here at Brands Hatch. But yeah, we're going to see Molinari and Ruderbusch finish 5th and 6th. Molinari, he started the day in 17th, and then Ruderbusch was as low as 17th after a couple of on-track incidents. So good recovery by both drivers, and that was a lot of fun to watch, even as the battle for the lead really ramped up near the end of the race.
We've had an incident here for some drivers further back, and since we have a chance since the race is over, we're not going to miss the win or anything. I want to see if we can take a look back at it possibly, because suddenly Trevor Anderson is behind Mick Blue after being ahead of Mick Blue, and I wonder how this one came to be. I was looking through, he was racing in the top 10 at one point, and this might be, this might be part of it, where he goes around, and I'm not sure where that is actually on the racetrack. That looks like it's headed down to turn 8, possibly?
I'm pretty sure that's the exit of turn 2, isn't it? Looks like he just lost it on turn 2 and...
yes, it may have been, yeah. Yep, you're right. You're absolutely correct of where that is on the racetrack. So out of Druids, he goes around. Same place they gave his teammate Michael Della Sala troubles this evening. But Garrett D'Alessandro will be catching up with him shortly, because what a run for Garrett. 2 weeks in a row now in the number 13, and he is going to leave Brands Hatch in England a winner. And I'm still amazed by that pass that he put on Chris Brunner for the win.
Yeah, that was incredible. You know, after starting P4, we thought it was not going to be his race, you know, his day, but, you know, quickly made it to P3, then P2, and then started chasing. Obviously, made a move on a pit road, you know, something we were talking about, but maybe didn't expect, you know, especially from Chris to make a mistake on pit road. But, you know, managed to pull through, lost the lead, kept at it, and made the move within, what, 3-5 minutes to go. And that was just it, you know, not time enough to, you know, Chris just didn't have enough time to call back and try to make a fight for the win again. So incredible race, 2 wins in a row, you know, solid championship lead. And James as well, you know, James last week was 3rd place as well, and that's kind of his race. Tonight was pretty much the same, you know, kept his nose clean, stepped in 3rd place, 2nd podium in a row as well for him.
Definitely feel bad for James Hansen. We really didn't mention him that much, but he really had a relatively quiet day, and it is going to be his 2nd consecutive podium. And if I'd have to guess, he's going to move up to 2nd place in the championship standings after tonight. So great job by James Hansen, Gavin Cohn, Eric Milani, the guys that round out the top 5. Just for a little bit of an idea of what kind of margins we were working with there, 2nd place, Chris Grunever, he finished about 1.5 seconds off of leader Garrett D'Alessandro. Then you go back to 3rd. Hansen was 25 seconds off. And then Gavin Cohn was 32 seconds off. And then you go to Molinari, 46 seconds off. And only 12 cars do finish on the lead lap. So things did get spread out as we, progress over an hour here at Brands Hatch.
And just like that, we'll step away and we'll be right back to all of you fine ladies and gentlemen here shortly. What a race here that Brands Hatch has put on for the Northwest GT3 Challenge, and we'll get to talk to some of the pawns in that scheme, if you will, to put on some great racing here shortly. The top 3 coming to you in no time at all. Don't go anywhere. We'll be talking to each of our podium finishers here shortly.
Sound art is a product that is a speaker and it's art. We combine it together and we call it sound art. What makes it so unique that any picture can be your speaker? Sound art gives you the high quality sound without the ugly speaker. This isn't a picture with a speaker, the picture is the speaker. Just imagine your wedding picture uploaded onto a canvas and now it's speaking 10,000 tunes. I mean, it's a very cool concept. What we like so much about it that you can take anything that means something very special to you, upload it on the canvas, have it hanging up in your room, your balcony, wherever you want to put it, and now it's a speaker. I mean, how cool is that? It's something that we have that and no one has. No one has this product. It's just a great gift to give anybody. It's just a neat concept. Around here we say, art never sounded so good.
Welcome back, race fans, to PitStop TV. We thank you for sticking with us now for post-race coverage of the Northwest GT3 Challenge. And what a race these guys put on in just the 2nd edition of this new league to PitStop TV, and actually a new league in general. Great stuff out there. Before we get into post-race interviews, because we didn't get a chance to through the race, want to thank some of our partners. We're going to lead off with series partners, 425 Motorsports, that caters and specializes in automotive racing and driving equipment for all automotive enthusiasts. 425 also offers a full automotive shop, for any car project you may have. 425 Motorsports is privileged to bring the Northwest some of its best equipment on the market. You can visit www.425motorsports.com for some more information about their diverse selection of equipment, apparel, in-house project management, and their full shop that specializes in race car builds, preparation, and straight performance and custom modifications. We also, of course, need to give a shout out to PGP Motorsports Park, a 22-acre go-kart racing venue with miles of asphalt road and panoramic mountain views. Located next to the Pacific Raceway in Kent, Washington, not Kent, England, Kent, Washington. You can visit them at pacificgp.com. Also, big shout out to Bradley Media Design, custom iRacing liveries. You can watch them work their magic over on Twitch at twitch.tv/biffdit, BIFFDIT. Sounds like a pretty cool deal. You can watch him work on his paint schemes there. Skull Sim Gear giving out a button box to the champion, I believe, of the season when everything is said and done. Button boxes, PC accessories for many games, including iRacing, Assetto Corsa, Elite Dangerous, Truck Simulator, and many, many more. Go to skullsimgear.com for more information there. Also, check out the Laraeus donation link that we have. We put it in the chat earlier on. The link, I'll just talk about that real quick, is www.laraeus.com/sport-for-good/get-involved tab =donate. It's a lot, but in fact, I'll put that back out in the chat real quick so you can just go straight to it. Check that out. Donate some cash, because donating to them is actually how these broadcasts get paid for. I guess they are matching the donations in payment. I'm not really exactly sure how they're working out that part of things, but we thank them regardless for making donations to such a great cause, and also, of course, paying our bills over here at PitStop TV. As usual, we want to thank our partners with PitStop TV, Whiplash Media. I'm sorry, I'm going way out of order. Tucson Sound Arts first up. Your picture, your music. You provide the image you want, and they'll custom create a beautiful framed, high-quality canvas with a built-in Bluetooth speaker. With Sound Art, you get the best of both worlds. Visit TucsonSoundArt.com for additional info. Of course, we also want to thank Permanent Makeup and Cryo in Maine, and when it comes to your appearance, you deserve the best care that money can buy. Permanent Makeup and Cryo in Maine, the owner, Ashley Bollier, she'll take care of you. She's a permanent makeup. I went way out of order in words, too. I'm just going to chalk that one up to I can't speak. We covered this one earlier, right, in the bingo. Are we going to get bingo cards printed? Emerson, JP,
like
yeah, we're gonna have to get cards.
It's a work in
at some
progress.
point. Yeah, it's gonna have to be like a merch section on our website or something, because I can't talk. But anyways, you can check out Permanent Makeup and Cryo in Maine at permanentmakeupinmaine.com, or call or text them at 207-358-8683. Book a consultation. They will take care of you, Ashley and Evan Bollier. We also want to thank Whiplash Media, of course, our parent organization that specializes in various sim racing resources, including paint schemes, stream overlays, iRacing camera packs, and more. They also are working on their presence in real racing, offering services like photography, social media management, and public relations. Go to whiplash-media.com. Now that we're through with all of that, we'll finally get over to our post-race interviews and speak with race winner Garrett D'Alessandro. And Garrett, I know we kind of made you wait there for a second, but what a race for you and your number 13 team. You wrapped this one up in a very different way than you did last week at Barcelona, but an equally impressive win.
Hey, thank you. Yeah, it was definitely a hassle, much more of a hassle than last week. I was fighting with Chris the whole time. He put on a good battle. I wish I could have qualified better. That would have been a lot more ideal, but I ended up, I think, having the pace over the course of the race with the Audi. I think the tires wore down a little bit less, and also I managed to undercut them on the pits. I don't know if that was because of the fuel usage of the Audi or what, but that was fortunate.
Yeah, so what did it come down to there at the end to make that pass? Because, like, it seemed like you just got by him with relative ease, or at least got away from him, rather. You made that very daring pass into Druids, and then once you got away from that, it just seems like he couldn't really contend.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. I thought he might have had some damage or something. I didn't end up looking at that yet, but definitely gonna watch afterwards and see what happened. I just couldn't really find a rhythm for the track until the end after the pit stop. Definitely took much longer for me to, sit into that pace.
So now 2 races up, 2 races down for you. You only lead 9 laps this evening, though. How was it trying to fight back after starting fourth and not getting that jump start from starting on pole like you did last week at Barcelona, especially where Chris got taken out in a couple of festivities there in the early goings, but you really had to race it out this time, whereas last week it seemed like you were kind of on cruise control.
Yeah, it was definitely better for me. I mean, last week it was kind of, just sitting around and or just cruising, like you said. But having someone to battle with is a lot more entertaining for me, and I'm sure you guys watching. Really good fun.
So Garrett, looking forward to the rest of the season. There's certainly a lot of racetracks on that schedule that I think are going to trip people up, just like this evening. I'm actually tapping back over to the schedule myself. Okayama next week. As I said in the Discord earlier, it's certainly one of those tracks that kind of promotes contact, and actually we saw our fair share of it this evening at Brands Hatch. How do you attack a place like Okayama after a couple of wins and already kind of getting a head start on points?
I actually haven't really practiced it that much. The only car I've ever driven at Okayama with is the MX-5, and that was a long time ago. So I'm definitely going to have to give it some practice, but I think it'll be a good track for fighting, and I hope we can have some good battles.
After Okayama, of course, we go to Interlagos and Bathurst before our first bye week on October 26th. But Garrett, congratulations on a big win this evening. It didn't always look like it was going to be you on top. I mean, Chris Brunnemer had you covered for the early goings, but as you said, I guess the Audi had some long-run speed, and you certainly used it to its fullest, making that pass in turn number 2. Once again, congratulations. We'll be talking to you, I'm sure, next week at Okayama, because it just seems like you're trending that way. Before we let you go, though, who do you have to shout out? Who do you have to thank?
Well, big thank you to my team over at FTR Esports. They're great. We're good. We practice together, we strategize together, and basically we're all encouraging towards each other. If anyone is wanting to join, just feel free to shoot me a message on the Discord, and I'd be happy to invite you. We're just relaxed. We're not really a competitive team. No, IR limits or whatnot. I'd also like to thank you guys at PitStop for broadcasting the race and doing the commentary and everything. And another thanks to 425 Motorsports for hosting the series.
Once again, thank you so much for your time here, Garrett, and we'll be talking to you, I'm sure, at Okayama, Interlagos, and the rest of the tracks coming up.
Yep, see you. Thank you.
And that's Garrett D'Alessandro winning at Brands Hatch this evening. What a race it was between he and second place finisher Chris Brunnemer, who JP Costa is going to have for an interview.
Yeah, exactly. So Chris, obviously you had the perfect practice. You top qualifying, and for the first half of the race you had it covered. We saw you controlling the gap. Eventually you dipped down to 2 seconds to 1.9, but you pull it back to 2.5. So through the first part of the race, the first 30 minutes right before the pit stops, you just had it covered. It was just going perfectly your way, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, and unfortunately we don't exactly know what happened, if it was just higher fuel consumption on the Ferrari or it was just a mistake on the in lap, the out lap. What exactly happened that made you lose P1 after the pit stop phase?
I think I definitely put too much fuel into it. I never put any thought into how many laps the race was going to go, so I overfueled a little bit. I've had about 2 laps of fuel in the tank, so I think Garrett, he just underfueled just a little bit to kind of get out in front. He had a really good lap right before I pitted that kind of closed the gap, and he obviously went 1 lap further, so he needed 1 lap less of fuel to be put in there, and that kind of got him in front.
And obviously just after those pit stops, just after you lost the lead, it didn't take you a long time to pull the move into turn 2 and already get the position back. And after that, you obviously had it covered up until the race-winning move from Garrett. But talk us through that overtake that eventually gave you the provisional lead before the final laps of the race.
Yeah, he just made a mistake. He wasn't the strongest coming into the third to last corner. He wasn't cutting the corner as much as a lot of people were, so he was a little slow there. And then he just made a mistake into turn 8, and I got a good run coming up to the last corner. A good run coming to that last corner. He kind of took a little narrow, got a bad run. I got up beside him. We gave each other a lot of room coming to turn 1, and it just made it stick. Gave him a ton of room coming off the exit, and we got by unscathed.
Yeah, and then after that, we saw you not controlling the pace, but handling the pressure very well. And unfortunately, what made you lose the lead? Was it a traffic? Was it just a small mistake on your part? What exactly happened?
Yeah, once I got the lead, for me, it was more about staying in front of him, keeping the gap just big enough that he couldn't do anything, keep on his toes, and, not do, burner laps every lap, just stay consistent and staying in front, because it's really hard to pass here, especially if you know where each other's weaknesses are. I knew he wasn't the strongest on turn 8, so I just managed the gap through like fourth sector, and kept him behind me and just managed it. And then there towards the end, I just got a bad run onto the front stretch. The lap car kind of played a little bit of role in that, because I'd like to have gone all the way to the inside, then swung back out. But yeah, I just got a bad run off of turn 1 and went to the inside, but he took it to the grass and kind of just overblew the corner, parked it on apex, didn't allow me to do anything at that point. Kind of drove over his entry point, and at that point, this is kind of done for me. The Audi's a little bit better on tires. It's got a way big advantage on the BOP, so at that point it was catch up, and I just had too many mistakes after that.
Yeah, we were wondering what happened after the move, the race-winning move. Was it contact that made you lose a bit of time? Was it, a slowdown that you got somewhere? Because you lost like 2 seconds on this next 2 laps, and we were unsure what happened. But towards the end, the final few laps, you really caught him up. You finished just 1.3 seconds behind him. So what exactly happened in those 2 moments?
When he kind of just blew the corner, and I just ran to the back of him. I was full on brakes when I ran to the back of him in turn 2. It kind of just got me flustered on that lap. And on turn 8, 7, the second to last right-hander, I've been cutting it more and more and more and playing with fire the whole race. And it was time to catch back up, and I just got to slow down coming through that corner. You could have all 4 tires off the track and not get a slowdown. That particular time, I just took too much grass and got a slowdown.
Oh, that's unfortunate. But, obviously, I'm sure you wanted to win, as every single racing driver wants to win. But, this is a great result coming from last week. And last week you were P2, and unfortunately, a series of mistakes and bad luck, all this sort of stuff cost you a lot of points. But, being on the podium for the first time this season, I'm pretty sure it feels really good, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, it feels good. It kind of sucks that the pass happened the way it happened, but we'll regroup. Hopefully there'll be a BOP this week, and we'll have a better luck next week.
Yeah, and just final 2 questions. Obviously, next week we're in Okayama, so obviously we're going to have a full week of practice, I hope. Obviously, we do have Petit on the weekend, so practice may be limited to every single driver this week. So how are you going to divide your practice between next week and Petit Le Mans?
Yeah, it'll be interesting on Monday night. I don't know how much practice I'll get with running the Road Atlanta on Saturday. So it'll definitely be interesting with that track. That it's going to be some excitement. So, yeah, that one could be a barn burner.
Well, I wish you all the best of luck. And just finally, do you have anyone to thank? Any sponsors, any friends, family, all that sort of stuff?
No, one-man shop.
Well, makes it a bit easier. But, Andrew and Trey, that was Chris Brenneman. That was our P2 finisher today. Unfortunately, he didn't win the race, but I'm sure he's going to come back stronger next week, and hopefully we can see him on the top side of the podium.
And so that is our second place finishing Chris Brunnemer. We do have, of course, third place finisher James Hansen waiting in the wing zone. For that, we'll turn it back over to Trey Shuttlesworth.
James Hansen, do we have you?
Yep.
All right, thanks for joining us. And honestly, you had a relatively quiet day, at least from our perspective. We didn't talk about you much. It seemed, relatively quiet for the most part. You started P3 and finished P3, same as last week. What are the initial thoughts getting out of the car?
It was a pretty boring race, pretty similar to last week. Mostly once Garrett passed me to get into P2, it was mostly just managing my pace, managing the gap with the car behind me, since I realized that I wasn't going to be able to keep up with P1 and P2. And then it was avoiding back markers.
No, Brands Hatch did seem to produce a lot of lap traffic, and it came quite quickly. Just going on to the second question, though, just wondering how your Ferrari 488 was handling around the circuit tonight.
Oh, it's great. It's really good on turn-in. We kind of lose pace in the straights against the other cars like the BMW and the Audi, but we are able to make it up in the turns. The problem is Brands Hatch is so narrow and treacherous with the grass right at the edges that we can't really make a lot out of it. We can keep close to other cars, but not really make passes very easily.
No, it definitely seemed to be the case throughout the field. Kind of changing pace a little bit. Did you have any particular plan when it came to your pit strategy tonight?
I'm a little lighter on fuel than some of the other cars, so I just kind of tried to stretch it. I think I pit a lap after the race leaders. I think that's what it was, which gains me about 1 second of time on them, but mostly just managing my fuel. If I started fuel saving, I would have been able to get another lap, but since there wasn't really any chance of catching up, I didn't really want to push it on the fuel strategy.
All right, fair enough. So just based off of rough calculation, this will move you up into second place in the championship. How does that make you feel as we continue the early portion of the season?
It's unexpected, but I like it.
Hey, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
And then looking directly at next week, we're going to be heading to the land of the rising sun. We'll be heading to Okayama. How are you feeling as we head to that relatively different track?
I'm nervous about that. The tight hairpins, especially since we've got an extra set of them with the GP circuit, is going to be interesting with that many cars. They're not small cars, and that's a pretty small track in some places. So it should be fun. I'm assuming qualifying is going to be just as important as it was at Brands.
Oh, definitely. I mean, there are a couple of pretty good places to overtake, but then it can be just as difficult in other parts of the track. So yeah, it should definitely be a lot of fun.
Yeah, should be fun.
All right, that's about all I have. Is there anyone you'd like to thank out there tonight?
I'd like to thank my wife for giving me the time to do this.
Hey, that's great. Okay, that's all I have then. Thanks for joining us, James,
Thanks.
and congrats on a second consecutive podium, that is.
Thank you.
So James Hansen wraps things up in the third position this evening, the bottom step of the Northwest GT3 Challenge podium. What an event it was here at Brands Hatch. I mean, that's a great way to wrap things up. That battle that came down really to the final few moments between these guys. And I really did not expect Garrett D'Alessandro to make that move stick into Druids, but I'm very impressed that it worked out for him. You can see his number 13 here is actually, this might be post-race after Brunnemer had passed him up, but just an incredible race between these guys, and I don't think you could ask for much more out of a place like Brands Hatch.
Yeah, definitely. We were talking how exciting this race was going to be, and it definitely delivered. It was better than last week. Hopefully, the next race is going to be even better. Hopefully we can keep up on this upward trend, and I just can't wait. If this race was that good, next week it might be even better because we do have a lot more overtaking opportunities on that race. So definitely not one to miss out.
No, Okayama has a couple of particularly long straightaways that head into heavy braking zones, which we really didn't see a lot of that here at Brands Hatch, just because a lot of the long straightaways led into medium speed corners. So, outside of the last sector at Okayama, I think there's going to be a lot of chances for guys to go for passes. So it should be a lot of fun. It's a track that's going to be a bit bigger, so lap traffic probably shouldn't be as impactful, but it's still going to be a factor when you have these fields that are 30, 35 cars.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said at the top of the show, next week at Okayama could be one that tends to provide a little bit of contact with these big, heavy GT3 cars, but they are relatively nimble and should be able to get a place around a place like that with relative ease. It's just a matter of funneling 40 or so through there. We saw the Lucky Dog Racing League a season ago, back in the spring, tackle that place with GT4s and TCRs, and things were complicated for sure. Wait, no, actually, I was about to close things out. We still have results to go over. Let's go ahead and do that real quick. Of course, Garrett D'Alessandro, we talked about him and talked to him after winning this one over Chris Brunnemer. James Hansen in third place. Gavin Cohn, fourth place. In fifth place, JP Eric Molinati recovers to get that position by just under a tenth over Mikkel Rodebush in that side-by-side finish.
Yeah, and, we can see that on P5. Oh, sorry. P7, we have Brandon Glenn Boyd finishing P7, Justin McCaleb finishing P8, Jeffrey Belk, which we haven't even talked about through the race, finishing P9. Claude Remillard managed to claw one position to finish P10 after that little mistake that he had that dropped him to P11, so that's good for him. On P11, we do have Andre Millet, P12, Michael Dooley, who was the last car to not get lap. You see a minute 24 just on the edge. Mick Blue finishes P13. Trevor Anderson, P14. Sarah Rabb, after not making the undercut really work for her, finishes P15. P16 go to Joey Atterbury. I hope I pronounced that right. P17, John McClintock. P18 to Adam Liltolf. Sorry. P19, James Allen. P20, Torin Longacre.
We look to the back half of the field. 21st position is going to be Gary Brown. He will be followed by Maurice Jones. Looking to the 23rd position, the first car 2 laps down, Jason Frisk. 24th position will be Bern Osterhog. We go to 25th position, Randall Ayers, followed by Justin Craig in 26th. And Grant Chircry will be the last car on 2 laps down from the leaders in the 27th position. Josh Jibarek will be 4 laps down in the 28th position, followed by Alan Roth, 29th, 10 laps down. And rounding out the top 30 tonight will be Michael De La Sala, 12 laps down.
31st goes to Jackson Lowry, 13 laps behind the race leaders. Tyler Campbell only made it looks like 16 laps or so, 28 laps down in 30 seconds. Sven Hartman, 30 laps down, only completed it looks like 14. Brady Lubenow only made it 9 laps or so, ends up 35 laps down in 34th position. Julian Williams, the 35th, the last of the cars that started this evening at Brands Hatch. Joseph P. Griffin, I believe, was our race control, and therefore does not start this evening's race. That then will conclude our coverage tonight of the Northwest GT3 Challenge at Brands Hatch Circuit. We at PitStop TV, thank you for joining us and tuning in for tonight's action. We hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. Join us again tomorrow night for the Operation E Motorsport iRacing League at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Wednesday, when the Bluegrass iRacing Series visits Talladega Super Speedway. And again Sunday for the Superior Class Auto Racing Cup Series for our second trip to Indianapolis Motor Speedway in 1 week. Make sure to follow us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/PitStopTV, on Twitter at PitStopTV_, and of course you can follow along with all of our social media updates on both of those social media channels. Again, Facebook and Twitter. Facebook is facebook.com/PitStopTV, Twitter at PitStopTV_. You can watch us over at Twitch as well at www.twitch.tv/pit_stop_TV, and on YouTube by searching PitStop TV or going to www.youtube.com/C/PitStop TV1. No matter where you watch this evening, thank you for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. And for PitStop TV, JP Costa, Trey Shuttlesworth in the booth with me tonight, Emerson Arden behind the scenes and taking care of our social media. I'm Andrew Cardinale IV, and we will see you next time.
Sound art is a product that is a speaker and it's art. We combine it together and we call it sound art. What makes it so unique that any picture can be your speaker? Sound art gives you the high quality sound without the ugly speaker. This isn't a picture with a speaker, the picture is the speaker. Just imagine your wedding picture uploaded onto a canvas and now it's speaking 10,000 tunes. I mean, it's a very cool concept. What we like so much about it that you can take anything that means something very special to you, upload it on the canvas, have it hanging up in your room, your balcony, wherever you want to put it, and now it's a speaker. I mean, how cool is that? It's something that we have that and no one has. No one has this product. It's just a great gift to give anybody. It's just a neat concept. Around here we say, art never sounded so good.